morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to make your messages more sticky or more influential or more impactful. One of the things as speakers, trainers and facilitators and even leaders, we can craft messages, we can deliver them confidently, but they may have little impact. So this is around the art and science of influence. And I do run a workshop on the art and science of influence in the workplace. So I'm just going to run through one little aspect of how to make a message more sticky. So more memorable, I'm likely to remember what you've told me. And welcome, Sharon, we've just got underway. Those of you who haven't attended webinars before, please ask questions as we go. There's the Q&A box that you're able to type in and I'll respond immediately. Not necessarily immediately, I'll look at the question, and if I'm going to answer it later on, I will park it, otherwise I'll respond immediately. So please do ask those questions as we go. Take notes, and I do record the webinar, so don't be too worried if I say something philosophical, scientifically obtuse, complex. You can review whatever I've said. It's unlikely, but you can review whatever I've said on the webinar in your own time. Importantly, think, apply. So if you've got a presentation coming up, which of these tools I'm going to share with you might you use to be more impactful, to be more memorable? Staff meeting, you've got a difficult thing to put across, a change. What technique from today might you use? And if you don't have a presentation coming up, cast your mind back to a presentation that maybe didn't eventuate as memorable and impactful as you'd hoped. All right. So Peter Dew's my name. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. My passion is helping people find their voice so they can confidently and effectively share their knowledge, expertise, their passions with the people that need to hear. 6 hooks, 6 ways of making your message more memorable. And I use the term hook because a hook kind of gets in your mind and it stays there. Same as when you hook a fish, you bring it all the way in. The first one's what's in it for me. The second one is one big message. The third one is have a call to action. The fourth one is use surprise. The fifth one is make your data your statistics. Make it concrete, make it palpable, and make sure you develop credibility around the topic that you're going to be asking. Let's get underway. 6 points. I've got to move fairly quickly in that 30 minutes, but please do ask questions as we go. The first one is what's in it for me? WIIFM. What pain, what headache, what problem is your message resolving, taking away, solving for the audience? Or alternatively, what pleasure, what goals, what aspirations, what key performance indicators are you helping your audience achieve through your message? You probably know that alleviating pain is a stronger motivator than creating pleasure. Talking to a homeless man about his superannuation balance and the importance to consolidate 3 or 4 funds into one fund so he's not paying excess fees is probably not going to motivate that homeless gentleman. Give him some shelter, some warmth, some clothing. So what pain is your audience experiencing and how does your message solve them? I was speaking to someone within the health system in Broome yesterday, and they needed to reduce the incidence of needle sticks. So you do injections, you take blood and you accidentally stick yourself with a needle. It's not the end of the world, but it's not a nice thing to do because you now have to worry about hepatitis C. and HIV. So going out and training people, staff, to not do needle sticks because they want to bring their key performance indicators down. They're on an outlier, so as an organisation they're performing badly. So I'm doing this training so that we can comply with our key performance indicators and stop being a high needle stick injury site. That's not a good message to the staff. It's about you trying to meet your key performance indicators and you as a manager looking good. There's nothing in it for the staff. So you want the staff to listen to your training, adopt some new methodologies so that you can reduce your needle sticks. So their pain is if you do get a needle stick, you have a 6-week worrying period where you do not know whether you will contract hepatitis C or HIV. So this new policy I'm teaching you will reduce your worry and your concern around needle sticks. That is more directed towards the staff, the audience, the trainer in the health system will be speaking to. How does your message alleviate pain, worry, concern? What headache is your message the paracetamol for? Is a metaphor I often use. I've been in small business for 10 years. The first 4 years I did my own BAS using MyOb, Mind Your Own Business. It was a manual system. I had to enter in all of the receipts in my shoebox, my bank statements, my checkbook butts. It took me roughly 2 days. I hated it. I almost quit my business because of the onerous reporting of my BAS. Then 4 years into my business, I've been in business for 10 years, someone spoke to me about in the cloud accounting called Xero, X-D-R-O. And Peter, if you're spending 2 days on your BAS, with Xero, it'll take you 2 hours. Does he have to sell that message to me? Does he have to push that message to me? No. What I'm saying is, wow, thank you, thank you, thank you. And my BAS now takes less than 2 hours. 2018, April, I was sitting in a restaurant in Swan Hill called Java Spice. The day my BAS statement was due, over a nice curry, I reconciled all the data and sent off my BAS in less than 2 hours as I ate my meal. Work out what the pain point for your audience is and how your message is going to help them alleviate their pain, solve their problem, or move towards their goal. So that's hook number one, or number one technique to be more memorable. And from a marketing perspective, you've moved from push marketing, shoving it down people's throats, to pull marketing where your audience says, give me some of that. I wish I'd known that 2 years ago. One big message. After you've spoken for 20 minutes, for 45 minutes, will people walk out of the room with that one big unequivocal message? That is, it can't be misinterpreted. Most people, when I say to you, what's the one big message of Nike shoes? What's the one big message? In fact, type it in the Q&A. What's Nike's sporting shoes? Nike's one big message. Sarah? Yep, thank you. Just do it. Everybody knows that Nike is about just do it. Barack Obama, 10 years ago on his first election night, spoke to 45 minutes to the people of America. And he said, yes, we can. That's all he said. He spoke about the financial crisis. He spoke about housing. He spoke about the banking industry. He spoke about the health system where you would struggle to get emergency care. And after each issue, he said, yes, we can come through this. This is the United States of America, and yes, we can do this. What's your one big message that goes all the way, that permeates through your presentation, through your proposal, through your sales pitch, that one big idea? When we had the yellow pages, the one big idea was not happy Jan. Not happy Jan was if you missed getting your telephone number, your business in the yellow pages, you had to wait another 12 months. Not happy Jan is now in the Australian language, and we know what it means, not happy Jan. What's your one big message that's going to permeate through your presentation? Have a call to action. What do many presenters and speakers and facilitators do? They stop talking. That's the end. Thank you very much. I was coaching someone yesterday in a workshop, and their ending presentation was, so that's it. That's it, folks. End with a call to action. Ask your audience to do something. If it's around occupational health and safety, maybe you've rolled out a new policy, and let's tie it back into needlestick. So how are you going to go back to your workplace and roll out this new health and safety policy to make sure we don't do any more needle sticks in our workplace? Go back to your workplace and roll out this new occupational health and safety policy so we have no more needle sticks. Call to action, call to action. When I used to work in the area of organ donation and transplantation, I often had to go out to high schools. So these are 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, and they want me to talk about organ donation, about tissue typing, blood matching, about viral screening, about what organs can be transported, about what stops people from being organ donors. And I give all this information. And at the end of the presentation, my call to action was really simple. So we've spoken a lot about organ donation today, and you've asked some really great questions. The key issue is, what do you want to happen when you're finished with your organs? What do your parents, your grandparents want to happen when they're finished with their organs? So if you only do one thing, go home and have this open discussion so that you know what is the best way forward should you ever have to have this discussion. What's your call to action? What are you going to ask your audience to do? Unexpected message, surprise. Sometimes out of the fortune cookie, we get messages we did not expect. And some of this can be amazing statistics. In Western Australia, at any one time, there's 15,000 people over the age of 65. So this is our grandparents, our parents, our uncles, our aunties, over the age of 65, experiencing elder abuse. So right now, 15,000 West Australians being abused. What do I mean by elder abuse? They're not eating the food, the cuisine that they prefer. They're not eating their favourite meals that they've always enjoyed throughout their life. They're not being given that choice. Or even the cultural nuances of cooking food, from sticky rice to rice cooker rice to the Australian way of boiling the guts out of rice. They're not being allowed to enjoy the food they brought up with. It could be that they've been in the same clothes for 3 days straight because no one's provided them with a clean set of clothes to get changed into. It could be that someone's walking into your room without asking permission, just walking in. You could be in any stage of undress. You could be even on the commode, and they're not even knocking on the door. Excuse me, Peter, do you mind if I come in? 15,000 West Australians experiencing elder abuse. Now I'll go into my message, which would be what to do about elder abuse, rights and responsibilities of our retirees. And if we transfer that number, just extrapolate, probably 40,000 Victorians, probably 50,000 New South Welsh people over the age of 65 experiencing elder abuse. Oh my gosh. What is the message that catches people unexpectedly? I was speaking to someone in SES in Western Australia, and SES has a young program, and they do a lot of education, a lot of training, and they can go out and volunteer from the age of 15 up and right up to 25. That's the young group. And I think from about 18, 19, they can actually become captains and make decisions. But from the age of 15, those that they recruit and come along, only 10% are still with the SES at age 20. So from 15 to 20, that's a 90% attrition rate. So all that money, that training, buying equipment for SES workers in Western Australia, only 10% go on to be involved at the age of 20. So what are we going to do about engaging our youth at a stronger and more vibrant level? And maybe you've got a program that helps engage and retain them. And it's going to cost a little bit more money. And you go to the government says, we're already spending lots of money. And you might say, well, the attrition rate is 90%. So you're spending money running a program that has a very poor return on investment. I'm asking for a little bit of money that will double your return on investment. Triple your return on investment. You spend $20,000 to do this engagement program, and we get 30% retention instead of 10. So that means those hundreds of thousands you're spending up front, you're starting to get real value. What are you going to use in terms of surprise or shock or awe? Statistics that people just have no awareness of. Now, you have to be careful of statistics, or not so much statistics, polling. We know that election polling doesn't always predict the outcome. But when you've got concrete statistics, and there's something about marriage as well. We know that 52% of Australian marriages fail. And that seems like a really bad statistic. But I read an article where they deconstructed that. And where marriages survive the first 10 years, the divorce rate is only 20%. So 80% of people stay married. And what it is there's those people that have 3, 4, and 5 marriages that increase the divorce rate. So the reality is that those people who get married and stay married for 10 years, 80% of them are still married later on. So use unexpected or surprise messages to carry your message. Concrete message. This is for data, statistics. And if you work in science, if you work in water area catchment, if you work in medicine, engineering, then often you're talking about data, statistics, numbers. And how can people remember them? So the technique is to make it memorable is to convert your data into something concrete. So let me start with the human heart. The human heart pumps 350 million litres of blood in an average lifetime. 350 million litres of blood. It's the most efficient pump known to mankind. So you can think of hippopotamuses, blue whales, their hearts. You can think of Chevron gas, oil and gas, and their big impeller pumps, and how much they move along thousands of kilometres of pipeline. But the human heart is even better. That's a lot of liquid, 350 million litres of blood. Quick question, who's going to remember that number? You may have written it down, I don't know. Yeah, not likely. Thanks, Stephen. Sarah, if I write it down, but I've got to remember where I kept it. Yeah. So how can I make that concrete? And one way is to translate it to something that you'll remember. So 350 million litres of blood. Go home tonight, turn on your kitchen tap, turn on the stopcock all the way open, full ball, and leave that running for 24 years. That's 350 million litres of blood. Leave your tap running for 24 years. Now, don't do that, please. Most people will tell you Australia is in a water shortage. Let's say I am working on Barrow Island with Chevron oil and gas. 350 million litres. That will fill 3 of the world's biggest super tankers full of gas, full of oil. So in the average human lifetime, this heart will fill 3 of the world's biggest super tankers full of oil. So that's an example of taking some data and making it concrete, making it memorable. Now, I don't know whether you're a go and turn on your tap for 24 years or three super tankers full of oil. I don't know which one you'll remember, but that's how you make data more concrete. Speaking of water, BHP's head office is in Perth. It's called Brookfield Place, and they've installed a lot of water-saving devices. So, low-pressure showers, in the men's toilet, waterless urinals, which means you just don't flush. There's microbes that break down any bacteria in the urine, make it smell nice, and saves a lot of water. Every flush uses X amount of litres of water. And so during 12 months, the Brookfield Place, BHP building, saves 236,000 gigalitres of fresh drinking water. Now, forgive me, I just made that number up because I cannot remember. 12 Olympic swimming pools of fresh water are saved every 12 months by the waterless and the water-saving devices that BHP have implemented within that building. It's a 26, 30-storey building. It's a big building. And so they're saving 12 Olympic swimming pools of potable, treated drinking water that can now stay in the system. So if you do have data, make it concrete. If you want people to remember it, or you can just hit them with statistics, bloody statistics. Statistics, damn statistics. Trust, credibility. Where does your credibility come from? Book number 6, the last book for today. You're asking me to change, to follow you, to adopt your way of thinking. Where does your credibility come from to allow you to do that? Without credibility, you may not get your message across. I teach people to overcome their fear of public speaking, to be more confident. I am a person who stutters. That adds to my credibility. I've also written a book that adds to my credibility. I'm also a CSP, which is a Certified Speaking Professional. This is an international recognition, an international qualification. Only 7% of the world's speakers ever achieve the status of CSP. Credibility, credibility, credibility in terms of what I do, which is public speaking. You may know there was a young West Australian scientist in the early 80s that discovered what caused peptic ulcers. a bacteria called Helicobacter pylori, but nobody believed him. So he went around the world telling people they thought he was crazy. And they wondered where he came from. Was it one of the elite institutions, Harvard, King's College, University of Sydney? No, no, no. He came from Fremantle. So they dismissed his science, his research straight away. And his hypothesis that a bacteria, Helicobacter pylori, could cause ulcers was preposterous. The stomach's full of hydrochloric acid, stress, alcohol, poor diet, they're the things that cause peptic ulcers. And for 8 years, he banged his head on research, on pharmaceuticals, on chemicals, on universities, trying to get this recognised and developed so we could treat and cure people with peptic ulcers. Nobody believed him. So as you know, in frustration, because he had no credibility, in frustration, he went back to the laboratory, overnight grew up 1 billion Helicobacter pylori and drank the entire contents. Long story short, 3 days later, he developed severe peptic ulcers, got his colleague to do the endoscopy, take the photographs and the biopsies that proved that he had Helicobacter pylori, treated himself with antibiotics. The peptic ulcers resolved. 4 days later, another biopsy, endoscopy, photos, and he went to the world and said, look, I know what causes peptic ulcers. This is Professor Barry Marshall, the Nobel Prize winner for medicine. Australia's Nobel Prize winner for medicine. Western Australia's Nobel Prize winner for medicine. Fremantle Hospitals, Nobel Prize winner for medicine. The thing is, if you don't have credibility, no matter how right, how correct, how certain you are, people will not follow you. They will not believe you. They will not buy your message. Good news is, credibility isn't one thing. Credibility is layers and layers and layers. And we call this your credibility stack. I spoke about myself. I'm a person who stutters. Okay, he must have done a lot of work to overcome his fear. I've written a book. I write blogs. I curate. I'm a CSP. People see me, so my very presence on stage is above the average public speaker. Okay, so he knows what he's talking about and he walks the talk, he practices what he's telling us to do. Credibility stack. Sometimes you borrow credibility. Some research they've done in Canada around water conservation, around innovative science, around social housing. When you propose a new idea, don't be afraid to borrow credibility as part of your credibility stack. New graduates, they've got no experience. They can't use the experience card. I've been doing this for 25 years. I know what I'm talking about. So how do they put a new idea forward? Borrow some credibility. So there's your 6 hooks. What's in it for me? Solve a problem. What's your one big message? Just do it, Nike. Have a call to action. Ask me to do something. Use unexpected message, surprise, statistics that we wouldn't believe, retention rates that are diabolical. Turn your data into something concrete. 350 million litres becomes 3 super tankers, or turning your tap on for 24 years. And credibility, build your credibility stack. Workshops coming up. Karratha in about a week's time, then some workshops in Perth in June, Bunbury also in June, Melbourne on the 5th of August, 2 workshops in Melbourne. I mentioned the art and science of influence in the workplace. This little webinar is one segment of that. We have spare time in Melbourne, so happy to go to Bendigo or somewhere else should any of the Victorians want to make use of this. Next webinars, how to effectively use PowerPoint. I've been watching a bit of Death by PowerPoint lately as a conference attendee, and how to write a killer speech. How to write a speech that has impact. That's me, over and out. Any last questions? So, remember, when you put your message together, try and put one of those hooks in. If you want to be influential, if you want to move people to a different way of thinking, then please try and be more influential, try and be more practiced in the way you craft your core message. Bye for now.